So if we look at what we were doing at the end of the last lesson, or let's just do a little recap. Over the last while, we've been talking about grouped data, where we have intervals, and then we have frequency columns. And then today, especially, we're going to focus on what's called the cumulative frequency for grouped data. And so I just want to start by asking, is everybody aware of how a grouped data table works? So for example, 0 to 10, let's say 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and then let's say we had 3 items in that range, 5 there, 1 there. The cumulative frequency column would be 3, 8, and then 9. So give me a thumbs up if you feel like you are familiar with grouped data and the idea of data that falls into intervals, and we have columns for frequency and cumulative frequency. Okay. And this is different to data that comes in a list, which we started the section with, where like we have data like 2, 3, 17, 19. That's a list of data, whereas this is grouped data over here. And so today's lesson is going to be focusing on how we display grouped data. In the last lesson, we spoke about 2 types of graphs. One was something called a histogram, where it looked a little bit like this. And with a histogram, we had the intervals along the bottom, then we had the frequency on the vertical axis. Okay, so that was a histogram. We then also did something called a frequency polygon. And the way that we did a frequency polygon is we added an interval on the end of the histogram. And then what did we do to create our frequency polygon? What did we do to create our frequency polygon? Who could remember? Okay, so we took, I say you're right, we took the midpoint of our intervals and we made a dot in the midpoint of each of these intervals, and then we connected them with straight lines, and that gave us a frequency polygon. And a frequency polygon, again, it has a frequency on the vertical axis. Give me a thumbs up if you remember the histogram and the frequency polygon from the last lesson. All right. Okay, now if you don't, what I would recommend is you go back and watch the previous video just so that you kind of cement that idea. Now, today's lesson is not going to focus on those 2 graphs. It's going to focus on a graph called the ogive, or the cumulative frequency curve. And what that graph does is it also has intervals. So it has, if I have to draw a little rough one for you here, it has its intervals along the x-axis. So basically, but then on the y-axis, it has the cumulative frequency, or what we would call CF. And this one, normally, when I plot the points are at the end of the interval. And so there, and also it doesn't have a straight line shape. It normally looks something like that. And so that's what we're going to learn how to do today. Okay, so let's just have a look at some of the definitions and we'll get going. An ogive, or cumulative frequency curve, let me use my highlight here, is a graph that shows the information in a cumulative frequency table. The graph is useful for estimating the median and the interquartile range of grouped data. So it's quite useful for estimating things. Always remember that when drawing the cumulative frequency curve from a table of grouped data, the cumulative frequencies are plotted at the upper limit of the interval. Okay, so what I want you to do is here is a table of grouped data. And I want you to find the values for me of A, B, C, D, E, and F. The data is of height. So this is how many students are between these height values. And I want to see, can you fill out the cumulative frequency column here? Over to you guys, and you can put your answers in the chat. If you have some questions and you're not sure how to do it, please raise your hand and we can discuss. So I think A is going to be 5 because the first interval only has 5 items in it. Yes. So what is the next one? Well, I've had 5 so far. I get 9 more. And so I'm going to get 14. So I've had 14 students that are less than 100 centimeters tall. Now I need 17 more who come in the next interval. So I add 7, I get 31. And what that means is 31 people are less than or equal to 105 centimeters. Let's see if you can figure out the next 3 by yourself. Keep those answers coming, everyone. I like what I'm seeing. Manelo and Malachi, Daenerys, keep those answers coming. So if you feel a little bit lazy, I suppose I could also use my calculator to help me. So 31 plus 28 gives me 59. And 59 plus 21 gives me 80. What's my last value going to be? Okay, so this is going to be 90. So I want to ask you the question, how many, so if this table is about height, how many students have we measured in order to put this table together? How many students' heights have we measured? Let me know in the chat what you think the total number of students is in the table. So there's 2 ways you could do it. The one way is you could add up each of the frequency columns, but that would take a while. And you've actually just done that when you've added up the cumulative frequencies. And so there are actually 90 students who have been measured for this investigation. Okay, now we are going to draw an ogive, or cumulative frequency curve. And so to do that, I need points on the grid. And what I remember the theory saying was that for my point, I needed to have a point at the end of the interval. So that's going to be 95 is going to be the point, and then 100, 105. That's going to be what I use. So I'm going to add an extra column here for just, it's a bit, let me zoom in because it's a bit small. So for this extra column here, I'm just going to call it XY, and this is going to be 95, and this is going to be 5 because I'm now using cumulative frequency, and this is going to be 100, and this is going to be 14. And if I go to the next one, this is going to be 105 because of this thing. Then the cumulative frequency is 31. Give me a thumbs up if you understand how I got these 3 points that go on my ogive. Give me a thumbs down if you don't understand how I got those 3 points. Okay, now I want you to try and work out for me the next 3 points that come after this. I'll call them points A, B, and C. Can you work out the next 3 points? And then Tando, hey, how's it going?
I'm good, and you?
Very good. How can I help?
So this one, you don't need to first find the midpoint.
Aha. No, you don't. So this is very good. I'm so glad you raised that. The midpoint, you find the midpoint for the frequency polygon. But this is not a frequency polygon. This is an ogive or a cumulative frequency curve. And so the process we use is we talk about the end of the interval for the ogive. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you for your question, though, because I know lots of students will, because it's a bit new, they tend to mix it up. So thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so what are our next 3 points? So I go to the end of the interval, so that's 110. And then I'm going to get 59. All right. What are the next 2 going to be? 115 and 80. And then 120 and 90. Now, it looks like we have 6 points that we can use to make our ogive. And so what I'm going to do is, and often in exams, they will give you a table on which you can draw your ogive. If not, you can just kind of make one yourself. But let me, maybe I can use the power of, oh, no, let's not get too clever here. Let's copy that. And I'll try and put it right next door so it's easier for you to see. Oops. Come on, computer, let me tell you what to do. There we go. Look at that ninja move on the IT side here. So if I'm going to plot my first point, 95.5, if I look at this, let's have a look here. It's a 90, that's 100. I guess, okay, this is a bit tricky. So I suppose 95 would be here and 5 would be there. So there's my very first dot over there. Now, the thing that we do with an ogive is we need a first point. So just when we start, we're also going to have a point down here, which we add so that it's grounded. So that I've taken care of. Let me get rid of my tick so I can keep track. So I go here. My next one is going to be 114. So I go to 100. I go up to 14, which is here. And then my next one is 105. So it's again going to be halfway, and then 31, which it goes up to here. Now I want to give you, I've plotted the very first 3 points, well, 4, because I added one extra here. Can you draw up your own curve here now? Don't take too long. And I want you to plot the next 3 points and then try and join them up. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes now. And when you finish with that, just put done in the chat. But it's going to take you some time because you need to draw, you're going to have to do a set of axes like that, and then you're going to have 90, 100, 110, 120, and then you're going to have to go up like that all the way up to 100. So I'll give you some time for that. It's important that you know the process for drawing a an ogive. It's very likely you would have some sort of thing like this in your test. And then if you have a question, just let me know. So you can decide on your own scale, Annie. So if you are drawing it, I would choose whatever makes, if it's too big, you don't have enough detail. If it's too small, so you're looking for the size that shows the graph. When they give it to you like this, you kind of have to just use what they have, So I'm just making my dots as I go here. because they've been nice enough to give me a thing here. So it's not wrong to use your own scale if you have to draw up the whole graph. Just a reminder, you are drawing up your own scale and you are putting in the points from my table, and I've put 3 for you, and you need to put another 3 that starting with 110.59. Okay. 15, 80, and 120. So we should have 7 dots in the end because we had the 6 from the table, and then we had the 1 dot for grounding of the ogive. Ogive does not have straight lines, it has curved lines. And so we should be seeing something. Oh, no, let me try that bit again. Like that. Let's see if I can put my dots a bit bigger so that you can see them. So that is my ogive. Kishani, yep, they absolutely, sometimes in the exam, they give you the ogive and you have to do that. And we're going to do that after the break. So first half today, we're drawing, and the second half will be questions like that. So let's imagine though, in the exam, they gave you this drawing. You see the highest value it gets to is 90. That makes sense because there are only 90 students in the class. You now have to estimate the median height. Now, the question now is, how do I find the median height? So basically, I have this group of children, 90, and to find the median, what we always did was we found the position of the median first, and we went a half times n plus 1. What is n going to be in this particular data set? What is n? So n is 90. Yes, Malcolm, absolutely. So if I go a half times 90 plus 1, what position of the median do I get? What's the position that I get of my median? So it's 45.5 position. So now what I do is I go, look, if I start at 0 and I go up to 90, that's how many students I have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to 45 and go a little bit above it. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to draw a horizontal line that goes from 45.5 and it gets me to here. And then what I need to do is I need to drop a line that goes down from here to here. And where it lands is going to be the actual value of the median. What do we think an approximate value for the median would be in this situation, based on what we know so far? What do we think an approximate value would be? So if that's 100, and I guess that is 105, yeah, so I think if I look here, the median is going to be, and there is some leeway. It's not like you have to get it exactly, but I would say Q2 equals approximately 108 or 109 centimeters. And what that means is 50% of the students in the class are probably below 108, and 50% of the students in the class are above 108 centimeters, 109, 108. Now, give me a thumbs up if you followed that estimation process. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't follow it. I just want a quick reality check from the class. Okay, now, what I want to do on the same graph is I want to estimate the first quartile. Okay, so I want to, over here it said you have to estimate what Q2 was, and we got 108 or 109. I want you to try and estimate using the graph what Q1 is. See if you can find what the first quartile is, and think about the process that we would use, given that you can probably use the idea that I just used to find the median. So try and estimate for me what Q1 is. And you're going to start with calculating the position of Q1, which is going to be that calculation. I might even need to use my calculator to find the position. So the position is 22.75. That's its position. It's not the value of Q1. I have to go and find where 22.75 was. Oops, sorry, I hit the magic button there. So let's say it gets to here, and then going down will get me down to here. What do we think the value of Q1 is going to be? So that was 100, and that was 105. So it feels to me like 102, 103 centimeters for Q1. 102, 103. Okay, nicely done. I want you to estimate for me what the upper quartile, or what Q3 is. Can you work out all by yourself what you think an estimate of Q3 is? Can it be, it could be 104, yes. I just thought if you think about 105, 105 was here, right? And so 104 just felt a little bit too close, but it's not, it's probably within the range of tolerance. So Tumelo was asked, how do you get Q1? Tumelo, I used the calculation. Position of the Q1 is a quarter times n plus 1, where n is 90. It's the number of students involved. So when I need to find Q3, I'm going to do a very similar thing. To find its position, I go 3/4 times 90 plus 1. Can you tell me what the position of the upper quartile is going to be? So I have to get its position before I can get its actual value. Let's have a look. 91 times 68.25 is the position. But now I need to see what value goes with that. So here is 68.25. And it feels to me like an estimate for Q3 is there. And if I'm feeling a bit confused, if that's 110, where would, so I guess if this is going to be 115, that looks about 112, 113, somewhere around there for Q3. Okay, now we've done really, really well. Can you see how it's not so difficult to find an estimate for the quartiles or the median using the ogive? It's actually just applying this idea. So the last question before we take a break, I want you to estimate the interquartile range. What is your estimate of the interquartile range using what you've just got now? And there's going to be tolerance. What is the interquartile range again to think about? And what do you think your estimate of the interquartile range is? So what I'm remembering is the interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1. And you've got estimates for Q3 and Q1. So I think it's either going to be, I'm just going to choose the top end estimate. So 113 minus 103. But I think both plus minus 10 would be the interquartile range. So but 9 would also be accepted because of the tolerance. And what that means, if you think back to our box and whisker plot, is that 50%, the middle 50% of the data is sitting within 10 centimeters of each other. So that is kind of the, if you imagine going back to the box and whisker plot, then this bit over here is 10 centimeters big, or the middle 50% of the data is sitting within those 10 units. Okay, you've done really, really well in this first half. And so what I want to do now is I want to click Save As, and I want everyone to stand up and join me in a bit of unwinding so that that information can be solidly consolidated in our brains. Okay, so on your feet. Oh, the sun is coming through. Let me quickly close my curtains. And I want to see your cameras, so you can turn your cameras on so I can see you. And let's start with a nice stretch. Come on, people, turn on those cameras. It's time to be silly. It's time to, you can't be serious all the time. Life affords you a time to be serious and a time to be silly. So, okay, let's swing our arms a little bit. Let's loosen up. Let's tell our body we can relax. Let's swing those arms. Take a nice deep breath. And let's roll our shoulders. And while we're rolling our shoulders, we look somewhere far away so our eyes can zoom out. And then we can change the direction of our shoulder roll and we can look somewhere else with our eyes. We're just letting our eyes focus somewhere different. Okay. And then let's do some more swinging of the arms. And let's shake out the arms. Pretend you're like a licorice allsort. Okay. Then let's do some twisting. So some gentle rotating around. And as you feel yourself loosening up, you can start to go further around. Oh, I can hear lots of clicks. I think it's my back. Oh, okay. Then see if you can do this one. So this is a hamstring. I don't know if you can see me. Put my camera down a little bit. So see if you can stand on one leg and stand on one leg and then hold your hamstring. So you nice little stretch the hamstring. And then see if you can do the other side as well. Feel a nice burn over here. Oh, that feels lovely. Okay, stretch out those legs. Okay, and then shake out the legs afterwards. And then let's just do a tricep stretch. And let's do another one. Ooh, always find this one tough. Okay, and then we need some heart rate raising stuff. So we're going to do air skipping. So, and we're going to do 15 to 20, depending on how I'm feeling. So we start in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Okay, 5 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we are good to go. I hope that your body is feeling nice and relaxed. And just today, just to finish off our break, something from Star Wars. Can you tell me what a Jedi plus a robot plus a fighter pilot is equal to? Let me know in the chat. Or maybe it's even there's even a Darth Vader mask, something, or a stormtrooper here too. Yep, this has to be 14. It's the only way that can make sense. And then I think this has to be equal to 14. So how much is a real robot going to be? I think it's going to be 3, which means that must be 3, which means that must be 3, which means 3 times 3 must be 9, huh? Yeah, 9, which means that must be 9. And then if I go back and look, oh, I see the answers are flooding and you guys are ahead of me. That's 3, that's 9. A Jedi is, or whatever it is, 14. And so 12 plus 14, and you guys have got there a long time. The answer should be 26 for today's puzzle. Well done, Melo and Malcolm. And Melo, I see lots of you have, I think you all got there quicker than I did. So well done. Okay, let's get back to our questions that we were doing on ogives. So if we look at this situation, it says start, draw a grouped frequency table to record the data shown in the histogram. So I want you to record your own grouped data table, and they've given you a histogram. You need to draw up the table. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that. Off you go. What is your grouped data table going to look like? This is the story of an accounting examination and how the students did in their accounting examination. Can I zoom in a little? I absolutely can. How about that?
Mr. S, somebody asked, how do we find the N in the position Q1?
How do we find the N? Oh, that's a lovely question. So the N is the number of items in the data. So in this situation, it says the histogram shows the distribution of the accounting marks for 200 learners. In this situation, N is going to be 200. There are 200 students. But in the very first question, all we're looking to create is a grouped frequency table. So that's what I want you to think about. And I'm hoping that when you think of what this should exist in, what you're trying to build is a table that has these 3 columns. And the intervals you should have so your intervals are given and they start at 30. And now you have to decide how to get the next bit. And just tell me when you're done in the chat. Okay, now the frequency column is actually me just taking straight from each bar in the histogram. So that wasn't too hard. The cumulative one is a bit harder because I have to add up 12 and 18. That gives me the 30. and I'm probably going to have to use my calculator at some point because these numbers are getting a bit bigger. But I'm really just adding, like now I have 85 plus 57, I get 142. Oh, and also these should eventually all add up to 200 here, because we know that there are 200 students. 185, and then add 11, I get 196, and then I get 200, which is happy days for all of us. Okay, so doing the grouped data table from the histogram wasn't too bad. The next thing is I need to draw an ogive to illustrate the data. Now, before I can do my ogive, what is the extra column I need in this table to help me? What extra column do I need before I can go ahead and draw my ogive? Not the midpoints. No, remember, it's going to be the XY column, although it's basically the points in the ogive. And remember, you need to use the end. So you use, at the end of the first one is a 40. And so your very first point is going to be 40, 12. And that is the point on the ogive. The next one is going to be 50, 30. I want you to figure out the rest of the points that are going to go on our ogive. And remember, with an ogive, it must, you get the x coordinate from the end of the interval, and you do add in one little one at the beginning, but you know, that one I'll talk about a bit later. So what do we have? I suppose it's a bit predictable though, because I'm a little bit out of a line. Apologies, I kind of should have. So I get 60, 85, and then I get 70, 142. I get 80, 185. I get 90, 196, and I get 100, 200. Okay, fantastic. So now, once you have completed your table, I want you to draw me a cumulative frequency curve for this thing. Okay, so you are going to take your data that you've got here, and I'm sorry, I'm running out of space, so let me see if I can zoom in a bit more. Up here, you have done all the hard work that you need for the points. What I want is, for the first one, it said, what is it, 40, 12, but remember that we actually want one that starts at the very beginning. So I'm going to put this in, I'm going to go 30, 0. So 30, 0 is here. And then I get 40, 12, which would be about there. And this first one is just going to be in line with 0. And then my next one would be 50, 30. So 50, 30 gives me there. Let me tick them off as I go. 60, 85. So 60, 85. See if you plot the points on your ogive, and then just tell me in the chat when you're done. And if you have a question, you can ask me in the chat. That 90, 196. Oh, I've gone too far. There we go. And then 100, 200 is there. So these points are making up my ogive. And you can kind of see sometimes people say that an ogive has like a snaky shape or like an S shape, which you can kind of see over there. Okay, now I'm going to do that now, Annie. So before I go on to question C, I want you guys to estimate the median using this ogive that you've just done. Okay, and I'll do the extended question soon, Annie, but for the moment, let's see, can you use the ogive that you've just drawn? Remember that N was 200. And I'm even going to zoom in a little bit because I don't think we need the other stuff now. We just need our graph. So let me see if I can do that. So if you know N is 200, what do you think an estimate for the median accounting mark will be? So first of all, we calculate the position of the median. Which is going to be 100.5. That's its position. Now, where is the position 100.5? I think it's going to be here. What do you think the value is that goes with position 100.5? What mark is the median mark for these? So if that was 65, that's 70. It feels to me like it's going to be about halfway between 60 and 65. So I guess that would be either 62 or 63. Okay. So we get an estimate of 62 or 63, that. Now, what I want to do, give me a thumbs up if you followed me on that. Give me a thumbs down if you feel a bit left behind on that. Okay, now sometimes what they do is they ask you to estimate a percentile. Now, we spoke about percentiles. Maybe you haven't even spoken about percentiles before. A percentile, so say, for example, they say, if I say to you, what is the 72nd percentile? That is 72% of the way through the data. And the way we find this 72nd percentile is we find the position of the 72nd percentile. And to do that, we are going to have 72 over 100 times n plus 1. Can you work out, can you tell me in chat, what is the position of the 72nd percentile? And then we'll actually try and work out a estimate for what P72 is. Now we already have an estimate for Q2, which was down here. What do we get if we put a 200 where n is? And this is called a percentile. It's 72% of the way through the data, whereas the median is 50% of the way through the data. So what are we getting in the chat here? Position 144.72. Okay, so I go to 144.72, which is approximately over here. What do we think the value of the 72nd percentile, or P72, is going to be? It's a bit good. So P72, if I look at it, it actually is P72, 144 is about there. I think maybe I've gone a little bit. Let me just try and do this over here. I think it's probably a little bit further up, so probably more towards the middle there. So it's actually going to be like 72, 73 in terms of its value. So that is called the 73rd percentile. Okay. Sorry, 72nd percentile, 72nd percentile. Okay, so that's another type of extended question that they can ask you. Now, along the same idea, if I said to you, what is the value of the 90th percentile? So I want you to work out for me what is the 90th percentile, which is also going to involve you working out the position of the 90th percentile. Go ahead and do that for me. What is the value or the estimate of the 90th percentile? And the 90th percentile is the value at which 10% of the students get above it and 90% get below it. So what is my position? It's 180.9. Where is 180.9? It's over here. Oops, sorry. And the value of the 90th percentile is going to be about 78, 77, 78. Now, what's interesting about that is what it's saying. It's saying, look, 10% of students got above 77, 78, 90% of students got below 77 or 78, which is quite an advanced idea, but I think you guys are getting it quite well at the moment, which I'm very impressed with. So the 90th percentile is the value 77 or 78 for this accounting exam. Can you give me a thumbs up if you sort of follow that? That's the hardest thing we've done today. Give me a thumbs down if you feel like you didn't understand that. Okay, well, that's fantastic news because that's a pretty decent question. Okay, last question for the day. How many students got above, how many students got above 78% for this test? How many students got above 78% for this test? I'll give you a hint, right? So remember, getting 78%, so the 90th percentile, okay, which is this one over here, about 180 or 181 students got 78% or below. So if you know about 180 or 181 students got 78% or below, how many got above 78%? Think about how many students you have in total. If 180 got below 77 or 78, how many are left that could have got above that? I'll give you a bit of a hint here. Okay, so I think the correct answer is going to be about 19 or 20. So we know about 180 got 78 or below. There were only 200 students in the whole data set. And so the ones that got above that must be the 20 or so that are living in this piece between here and here, which is about 20 students. Now, if you've understood that, that is properly hard. So well done on understanding it. If you understand how we got that, if you didn't, don't stress. You can re-watch this video to get there. But I'm going to call it a day for today because you've done really, really well. And no need to push any further. Okay. So I hope you've enjoyed our 6 lessons on stats.